It is Packers Game Day. Welcome in, everybody, to this Packers Texans Game Day edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. My name is Andy Herman. Thanks so much, as always, for joining me. Today, I'm going to be giving my 3 keys to a Packers victory and really the 3 keys to this game overall, as I do every single Sunday. But before I get to the 3 keys to today's game, let me start by going over some of the transactions that Green Bay made on Saturday. I talked about some potential transactions that they could make on the last episode. So what they actually did, they do in fact bring up Kamal Martin from injured reserve. They activate him. This is a really big deal for the Packers. As I've mentioned before on here and on Twitter, I think if you would have asked anyone that was covering the Packers and was allowed to watch practices, I think just about everyone would have told you that Kamal Martin was set to have the best season of any of the Packers rookies just based off of training camp. Does that mean much? No. We've seen Chris Barnes play well. You never know exactly what's going to happen until you get to Sundays and players, put on the pads and are, show what they're capable of. So Kamal Martin still could be anything from bust to Hall of Famer. We have no idea whatsoever, but it's worth noting that in practice, he looked like the best of the Packers rookies, at least in the short amount of practices that we were able to see. He's a thumper. He showed better in coverage than I expected. There were multiple plays in camp where there was a big pop on the field and you looked and it was Kamal Martin making the hit. Green Bay hasn't had that type of intimidating linebacker, somebody who can, again, have some of those forceful hits, also get back in coverage, kind of be that all-around linebacker. I'm not, anointing him yet, but this is a big return for the Packers. It'll be really interesting for me to see exactly how they utilize him, what happens to Chris Barnes. Christian Kirksey's still out, so there's definitely some opportunities there. They still have Ty Summers, and Raven Green's been playing in that hybrid linebacker role, so how they kind of maneuver all those linebackers and try to get Kamal Martin some snaps will be really interesting, but this is a really big return, in my opinion, for the Packers. Some other moves they make, they do in fact bring Ben Braden up. I thought this was unlikely because he literally just signed with the team this week, but they bring him up to the active roster. He does have some NFL experience with the Jets playing on Sundays, so it does give them some depth. Somebody who was with the team a season ago for, again, a cup of coffee on the practice squad, has some NFL experience with the Jets, so you're getting somebody as that 8th offensive lineman that in an emergency situation at least has played some in the NFL, unlike Ryan Pope or Zach Johnson, who they have on their practice squad. So in that sense, it does make some sense. He does, in fact, go on the 53-man roster, as does Billy Wynn, defensive tackle. I thought maybe they'd bring up Willington Prevalon. They decide to go with Billy Wynn as a member of the active roster. Remember, he couldn't be moved up from the practice squad as one of those game day actives because he was already activated twice. So this means that Billy Wynn is now officially a member of the active 53, along with Ben Braden, along with Kamal Martin. So they added all 3 of those back to the active roster. Then they did call up 2 players as well, Dexter Williams and Henry Black. Dexter Williams, of course, the running back, 2nd-year pro, 6th-round pick a season ago. He's probably going to be their 3rd running back in emergency situations, maybe play some special teams. Assuming Aaron Jones is out, it's kind of leaning towards that. But we'll kind of see if he actually gets on the field at all. Unless there's an injury to Jamal Williams or A.J. Dillon, I wouldn't expect it. I would expect a heavy dose of A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams, but we'll see if Dexter Williams makes an appearance at all. And then Henry Black at safety, with Darnell Savage being out in this game, makes sense to bring up Henry Black. This is probably more for special teams with Will Redmond, probably starting at safety, Will Redmond, Raven Green, those type of players needing to play more core snaps on defense. This likely allows Henry Black to focus on special teams and kind of be one of their core members of the special teams unit this week. But it'll be interesting to see who's active, who's inactive. Maybe if they have enough inactives on injuries, which is never exactly what you want, maybe this could be Jordan Love's first game active. Not that it matters, but other than his first active NFL game. But we'll see as 10:30 rolls around on game day to see exactly who those actives are. All right, so let's jump over to my 3 keys to this game. Number 1, you can never use injuries as an excuse, and maybe it's lazy using it as a talking point here, but I think it's worth noting that Green Bay has a lot of injuries in this game to key players and really at every level of both the offense and the defense, save for quarterback, right? So they're all three of their quarterbacks are healthy. At running back, Tyler Ervin's out. Aaron Jones, is probably out as well. At fullback, Josiah DeGuara, who they've used out for this game. Wide receiver, Tyler Ervin, who they've used a ton in the slot, as well as Alan Lazard out in this game. Tight end, we don't know about Robert Tonyan, but we already know Josiah DeGuara, again, out on IR for this game. Offensive line, David Bakhtiari out for this game. Defensive line, probably Montravius Adams, along with Tyler Lancaster. Linebacker, Christian Kirksey. Cornerback, Kevin King. Safety, Darnell Savage. So literally at every level of this team, save for quarterback, you have an injury to a core member of that unit. So it's a lot of next man up. I tweeted out on Saturday, this is not a game to talk about, all right, style points. Did Green Bay win by 10? Did they win by 15? This is a uncommon opponent, AFC South. They see this team once every 4 years on the road, coming off a very brutal loss with a ton of injuries. This is a get the hell out of Houston with a win game, especially with all those injuries. And how Green Bay responds and how some of those players who are called up and forced into action, the A.J. Dillons, how does Kamal Martin look coming back? How does Billy Wynn look at defensive tackle? All those sorts of questions. Is it Kadar Hallman or Josh Jackson at corner stepping up for Kevin King? Personally, I'd like to see Kadar Hallman with the kind of the quicker, shiftier wide receivers with Houston. These aren't big physical wide receivers where maybe you want more of a Josh Jackson in there. These are quicker, shiftier wide receivers. I want Kadar Hallman. I didn't think Josh Jackson's played well the last couple games. I'd like to see a change there. We'll see if Green Bay pulls the trigger, if they kind of stick with what they had a week ago against Tampa. So I'm very intrigued to see how these players step up. And again, this is a game where it doesn't matter if they lose or win 54-51 or 3-0 or anything in between. Don't count the style points in this game. Just get the hell out of Houston with a win. Number 2 on my list is pressure. And Green Bay, it's been the talk all week how their pressure has been down, but this is another top-tier quarterback that Green Bay is facing this week in Deshaun Watson, and they have to find a way to beat the Texans' offensive line or bring more pressure from a scheme standpoint, just bring more guys than they can pick up and trust your corners a little bit more. I don't care what it is, but they've got to find a way to get pressure on Deshaun Watson because I just talked about all those injuries at all the different positions. Well, guess what's really not hurt in this game? Assuming Preston Smith plays, who's questionable, and I assume that he's very much going to play. Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Kingsley Keke, your core pressure group is all 100% healthy. And it is time to put up or shut up for that pressure group because this should be one of the best units in the league. They haven't been so far. Enough's enough. This has got to be the game where they start putting the load on their backs and say, you know what, we're going to take over some games, and this is going to be an example of that. We're not leaving Houston without a victory, and if we get to Deshaun Watson enough, force some turnovers, we can win this game, and I think that's got to be the mentality of that front group as they apply pressure, and if that doesn't work, then Mike Pettin's got to have a few aces up his sleeve because we've seen way too passive, way too vanilla. I know he's brought some pressures, but they haven't worked, so he's got to figure out something to get pressure on Deshaun Watson if his front four is not getting home. So that's number 2 on my keys this week. And then number 3, simply put, Davante Adams. Listen, I get the conversation now of, well, are the Packers better without Davante Adams? It's a stupid concept, but there's at least enough freaking games out there now where Davante Adams in the Matt LaFleur system has been on the field and they haven't played the best and they've played great when he hasn't been out there. I think it's so stupid, but at the same time, it's starting to be a little bit weird, if nothing else. I still don't believe it to be the case. If you ask any coach in the league if they want Davante Adams, all 32 would say, give me Davante Adams in a heartbeat. He's one of the top 5 receivers in football, in my opinion. He's phenomenal. But it's been weird, and I don't think that's anything on Davante Adams. I don't know if it's just a Rodgers thing, if it's a LaFleur thing, if it's just the offense isn't quite as much in harmony. I don't know. I legitimately don't know, and I think, honestly, it's just happenstance. I really, really do, but it's happened enough times now where you at least have to go, all right, what the hell? So, to me, this is a Davante Adams game. Yes, Bradley Roby's played pretty well since moving over to Houston as a man corner, and he's a player that has some ability to stick to top receivers. Davante Adams should smoke him. If they have any thought in their mind that Bradley Roby can one-on-one match up with Davante Adams, that is advantage Green Bay. All right, so this is, to me, has to be a Davante Adams game. Vernon Hargreaves isn't going to stick with him. I want to see 140 yards, 2 touchdowns from Davante Adams. And I don't care, we got to spread the ball around and you got to, do this, that, and the other thing. There's no Aaron Jones in this game. You're banged up at receiver. No Allen Lazard, possibly no Robert Tonyan. Feed Davante Adams, get him in positions to be very successful, and let him eat against this Texans secondary. That's what I'm looking for. Those are my keys to the game. Again, how does Green Bay respond to all the injuries through all the different groups on this team? How can they get pressure on Deshaun Watson? And can you get Davante Adams in a position to feed on this Texans secondary and be very successful? Because again, to me, this should be a Davante Adams feast fest against Houston on Sunday. Hope you guys all enjoy the game. It should be very entertaining. I think this is going to be very similar to Packers Saints from a couple weeks ago. A lot of points. I'd expect some really high-scoring offenses. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm still predicting the Packers win. I think it's going to be close. Packers win by a field goal at the end. But we'll see what happens. Again, I hope you guys all enjoy the game. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure to check out our preview podcast today on the Pack-A-Day podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Go freaking Packers. Let's get out of Houston with a win, 5-1. And until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.